British Leyland's smallest estate car, the Mini Clubman Estate. If you want to find out what I thought about it, stay tuned. Okay, so these Clubman models were built between 1969 and 1980. The original Mini, as you probably know, was 1959 that came out. So the Clubman were some 4 inches longer than the standard Mini. In fact, I don't know about the Estate, if that's also 4 inches longer. Put in the comments if you know. They came in a variety of engines, all A series. There was an 850, a 998, a 1098, which is what this one is, and a 1275, the one that you wanted. And back in the day, these things were just so popular. I think the number that I'd read in total, there was something like 5.3 million of these things built worldwide. I mean, that's just astonishing. They were aimed at the small family market or just as a little town runabout. And I think British Leyland actually made a loss on every single one that they sold. Competitors at the time were things like Citroen 2CV, Renault 4, but I think these are a lot cooler. And personally, this is my favourite style of Mini, the Clubman. I just think they look a lot nicer squared off than the original rounded ones. So this is a 1980, so it would be one of the very last ones built. It's an 1100 and it's got low mileage of 64,000 showing on the clock. So let's take a wee look round it. Black bonnet, that's probably for the next owner to respray. It sits quite low, this one. I mean, they do sit quite low as standard, but ain't a massive amount of room there. I can just get my fingers in there between those arch spats and the tyres. Little 4-spoke wheels, kind of quite period. I think they suit it quite well, actually. So these only have 2 doors, of course, but they do look quite cool. You've got this sliding glass window here, and then round the back, I think they look superb. You've got these wee doors open. I mean, they're like so old-fashioned, but in a good way. Yeah, so these little doors open, let you into the boot area. But how cool is that? Proper retro. Hinges on the outside and everything, so I think that looks super cool. This one I think's had an aftermarket exhaust on it. But yeah, you do really see how low this thing does set to the ground. I mean, we're way down there, aren't we? But yeah, so thumbs up for the Clubman for me. I totally love the styling. It's a really nice colour, this one. This one hasn't had a full restoration. It's probably had some work in the past to have made it from 1980 till now. You can see a little bits of rust coming through here and there, but you know, there's nothing major. You know, again, good usable classic. It'll be MOT exempt, tax exempt, and importantly, ULEZ exempt. Right, let's take a wee look under the bonnet. So we release the lever there, by the looks of it, and there we have it. Now, just once I find that to keep it up there. There we go. So I think everybody recognises the old A series. I think everybody has had a car with an A series engine in it. 1098, I think something like 46 horsepower, 43. Put in the comments if I'm wrong on that. Quite a radical design when these came out. Transmission and sump. So yeah, basically the gearbox sits where the sump would sit, and the engine uses the same oil as the gearbox. So that means you've only really got the clutch on the side of the engine. So it's quite compact. The radiator itself actually sits on the side, so you see how small, you know, this engine bay is. I think it was so they could maximise interior space when they designed it. But yeah, so there isn't actually that much space to work, but there's not actually a lot in here. Sitting here with a single SU carb there at the back, providing your fuel, but you do have plenty of space at the front to get into that distributor there when you're changing your condenser and points. and a rotor arm, so that's quite handy. So yeah, so quite an interesting setup for the time. Right, let's take a wee look inside. Minis are very, very basic inside, as you would imagine. So they're fitted with these black velour seats, not particularly comfy, don't have a headrest in this one. The interiors on the Clubman are different to the standard classic Mini. So rather than having the speedometer in the centre, you have this little instrument binnacle here with your speedometer, your fuel gauge and your temperature gauge. I actually quite like it, it looks really cool. Real 70s styled, you know, dashboard. A few switches you've got here in the middle, hazards, and I think that's maybe a brake light check, something like that, and a fog light, obviously your choke, no radio cassette fitted in this one, and then you've got your fan and your direction for your heat. And these wee vents here, pretty cool. A wee bit similar to those ones in the Cortina. Bit of an awkward driving position in these. You sit right the way down. It's kind of like driving a bus, and the steering wheel is way up there like that at a very bizarre angle. So as you can see, that's me reached out there, and the pedals are probably in the right position. So probably wouldn't want to do that many miles in it. It's not particularly comfy for me, but these were just meant to be little town cars for running about and not doing large distances. Right guys, let's see how it drives. What's the first thing you notice? That distinctive whine that you get off of these A-series engines. So the steering on this one is actually quite precise. You know, it darts about these country roads really, really nicely. Really responsive steering. So yeah, that's quite good fun. I mean, it is just like basically like a little go-kart, these things, when you drive them. And then you've got the hydroelastic suspension on them as well, which is pretty decent. We'll see what it's like on my my favourite bit of test road down here in a minute, see how much it absorbs those bumps. The brakes on this one, the pedal bite's quite high up on it, but you do only have a very, very small car to actually slow down. I remember some of the early Metros didn't even have servo assistance on the brakes. It was just the brake master cylinder straight into the line there. So onto the engine, yeah, it's a willing little engine, you know, 1100cc, 40 odd brake. It pulls a little Mini along pretty well. I think these are only 600 odd kilos to be fair. The clutch on this one is quite stiff. There's quite a short throw on it, and the same with the accelerator. Very short range of travel on it. I mean, they don't sound particularly amazing, A-series engines. All that's just apparent is that whine that you get off the transfer gears there. Very, very distinctive. I think this particular one could probably benefit from a wee bit of a tune-up on the carb. That's my only observation so far on it. But yeah, the gears, you've got this big long stick here. Not the most precise, you know, going across the gate. You do get there in the end, and there's a lift into reverse, so yeah, that takes a wee bit getting used to. I mean, there's no crunches or anything off it. It's just typical VL of the era. That's what the gearboxes were like, the transmission and sump setup. And it's certainly got a good turning circle in it, I'll give it that. So I didn't really know what to expect when driving the classic Mini. It's one of the few cars I've actually never driven. My first car was a Metro, similar-ish driving position, and obviously the same engine. In that case, it was an A+ series, and they sounded very much the same. But yeah, it's you know, what it doesn't, it makes up for what it doesn't have in performance in terms of the handling and the steering, in the way it can nip about country lanes like this. You know, it's pretty good fun. Even old hydroelastic doesn't manage too well on this road. But yeah, I do struggle with this driving position. Everything seems to be quite a reach away. You know, first and third gear, your controls down here, and then your knees are pretty close, nearly touching the bottom of the steering wheel. So it is quite unusual when you compare it to modern standards. But, you know, 15 odd million of them sold. so I guess they must have been popular back in the day. I think it was probably the compact size. You could fit in any parking space with them, and they would have been very economical to run, just being a 1 litre. Right, let's see what the acceleration's like. So interesting, it does seem to liven up a bit once you get up the rev range. It does seem to enjoy being revved, which is I guess unusual for one of these. But yeah, it pulls it along as you would expect for something with 40 odd brake. 0 to 60 time I think was in the region of 18 seconds for these, so yeah, no traffic light Grand Prix in these unfortunately. Maybe I guess the 1275s would be a good bit quicker. And I know a lot of people do turbo conversions. There's even Honda D-Series conversions on these, so they would probably be pretty spectacular, I would imagine, with the low curb weight. How good is that? You can actually fit around the speed humps. So that's a definite plus point. We'll try that again. Yep, it fitted around the speed hump quite easily there. I mean, I guess the drive of these, it's like anything, you know, by the end of this like 1 hour drive, I've kind of gotten the hang of it, and the gears and the clutch and the steering don't seem as bad as they did when I first got in it. It's like anything, you do get used to it. I guess the question is, you know, is it something you can live with, that has a character that makes you want to buy one? Right, so conclusions, what did I think about the Mini? Well, look at the styling. Who wouldn't love a classic Mini like this? And Clubman is the best one in my opinion. The engine, you know, it's a willing little engine, it's in the car, never going to set the world on fire with 40 odd brake horsepower, but you know, it pulls the Mini along nicely. Things I don't like, driving position. I really struggle with that driving position, being as short as I am, reaching for that steering wheel and the pedals in quite close to you, so I didn't like the driving position. The gears are a bit of a struggle, you know, you're reaching right over for those gears, trying to find those, they're not as precise as I would have liked them to be. But yeah, the whole drive and owning one, you know, they've got a hell of a lot of character about them. So put in the comments, have you had a Mini? What one did you have? And what did you like about it? And a special thanks to Scott at Retroshite for allowing me to do a review on this car today. I'll put a link to his website in the description. I think this car will probably be getting raffled off quite shortly. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all for the next one.